This is the official podcast of the G20 Interfaith Forum, where we discuss the key events, the goals, and the focus of the organization.
Welcome to G20 Interfaith Forum podcast. I'm Mariana Richardson.
And I'm Stuart Bird.
We are so grateful to have our guest today, Sandile Makasi. And Sandile, would you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Yeah, I'm Sandile, as Mariana said. I'm grateful to be back here on this podcast. I was just here a few months ago. Yeah, so I have been having a privilege this year to be part of the IF20 local organizing committee for the South Africa presidency. And I've been serving as a vice chair there, and it's been wonderful. It's been a great learning experience, but also it's been filled with a lot of opportunities to collaborate and to work with various people across all spectrums and all religions. And it's just been beautiful for me to be part of this.
Thank you, Sandile. We know that your recent efforts have been directed to helping the IF20 have a presence at the 2025 G20 Social Summit held in Johannesburg, South Africa this year, just about a month ago, right?
Yes, you are right. Yeah, we had that. It was a great event. As some of you may know, the Brazil presidency under President Lula Silva did their first ever G20 Social Summit, and the whole purpose of that was to bring all civil society, people of faith, all different people from various communities to come together and to share ideas and to share what they think world leaders must consider as they develop the leader declaration. And so in the same spirit, President Ramaphosa of South Africa felt that it was great to do that as well. And so it was a privilege for us as the IF20 to be invited to be part of the Social Summit, where more than 5,000 people were invited and attended.
And I don't think that the listeners know how important this meeting is. And one of the positive things that happened was that IF20 was also very much a large part of the G20 Social Summit this year. Can you explain a little bit about what IF20 did at the summit? And I know we also had a major part of what happened there.
Yeah, thank you. So the presidency of South Africa, they were very smart. They considered the formal engagement groups, and they were able to work with them throughout the year, as you know, to get recommendations, to have ministers' meetings and so forth. But along that, they also considered the informal groups like the IF20. In fact, in May, we invited leaders from the South Africa presidency to come and address a meeting, Africa Week meeting of the IF20, where they expressed to us the value of people of faith and specifically the IF20. And they expressed their admiration for the work that the IF20 does, and felt that we needed to be part of the social summit. So we were one of those who were part of the planning meetings. We were part of the discussions in terms of the agendas. And we also had a privilege of arranging our own side event as part of the social summit. So that was a really cool thing. But also what we were able to do, on the final day, when the final recommendations were developed, a declaration from the social summit was prepared, and it was going to be delivered by a child. And so Dr. Peto, Dr. Sylvia Peto, who's part of the IF20 local organizing committee in South Africa, was able to, on behalf of the various engagement groups, whether formal or informal, stood up and officially said, we have the declaration. Now we will hand over to the child, who will then deliver to the president. For me, that was really special. It was also special to note that, in the beginning, in the opening ceremony and in the closing ceremony, the interfaith 20 was mentioned. For me, that was beautiful because, not only, was it heartening, but it was actually beautiful to see that not only that we were recognized, but also we were playing an important role that they appreciated.
Well, and I agree that our experience there in South Africa was amazing in terms of the way that we were welcomed into South Africa, but also the significant role that we played. Now, during our time during the social summit, we did have, as you mentioned, this side meeting. What happened at that side meeting?
So what we did is we were asked to provide a submission where we were to motivate why we needed to have a side event, because there were many organizations, and so we were chosen. There was a few rooms available, but they were able to provide us one room. And this event that we held was on the 19th of November, and we wanted to use this as an opportunity to express the learnings and also the findings throughout this year as we, as IF20, have interacted with people of faith, we've interacted with experts, we've interacted with governments, where we can share what we've learned, but also what are our main recommendations and why we think they're important. And so, we had that event, and we invited a few panelists who shared these areas. I won't mention them in order of priority, but I'll just mention them. So the first one was human trafficking. We had Kevin Highland, who a stellar job to highlight the plight of those unfortunately who are being abused and who are being exploited throughout the world, and was raising this as important factor, and it's something we have done so as well. And then disaster prevention, response, and recovery. This one was an interesting one because on the same time that we were having our event, there was another meeting where different people were able to give their submissions around the subject of disaster. And so I got to go to that meeting right before ours, and I presented that this is an important thing for us as people of faith because of the work that we do as people of faith. In fact, I mentioned there that the matter of disaster prevention, response, and recovery was a multi-sectoral matter that all players, including people of faith, needed to be part of the conversation. They needed to be part of the efforts, whether it was relief, but also it was preparation and so forth. So it was interesting for us to give that feedback on the things that we have, we have found there. Then the other area was economic and financial action. And this is issues of debt, which is a big challenge, especially in the countries of the global south, like the ones in Africa and the developing world. So we raised that. We had Eric Lacomte, who spoke about this and who shared, the principle of the Jubilee, and it's interesting for this is a different angle, right? It's from the people of faith sharing from their faith traditions what this means and why this is important. We were very grateful to have a chance to share that. And then the other one was food security and poverty. Efforts. This is a big issue, and we raise that and what we've been learning. In fact, we even had an opportunity to share how people of faith are playing a critical role in addressing this issue, and they needed to be part of the conversations in order to address it. And then we also discussed a little bit about addressing interreligious tensions through education. Which was an important aspect. But all in all, I would say, Mariana, what we were able to do or demonstrate was that, the people of faith should be, at the table. People of faith should be part of the conversations. People of faith not only have expertise, but they have the heart and the love for God's children. And they're already helping. They're not looking for handouts, people of faith. They are saying, let's solve these global polycrisis together.
Thank you for sharing that, Sandile. Do you feel like IF20's presence at the social summit really helped bring those ideas across, the importance of having religious players and religious organizations at the table for these decisions?
I think so. I think so. Of course, one can never be satisfied fully because there's so much more you can do or you'll be allowed to say. But I do believe that, to a very large extent, what we see in the leader declaration does, really demonstrate that we had an influence as people of faith, that we had a voice and our voice was heard. And not only was it heard, it made it to the final declaration. And we are very much looking forward to moving with speed in implementing what is in the declaration. And we are happy to work with everyone or anyone who wants to help in order to address these issues.
I'm so glad you talked about moving forward. I think one of the things that always worries about, that I worry about, is that G20 happens in this country and then we move on. And then we question, okay, all that work that we did this year, does anything come from it? But what do you see as we move forward? What do you see the future being because of what happened at the G20 Social Summit, but also for the whole year? What do you see our
Yeah.
future?
There's two things. Firstly, I had breakfast yesterday in Cape Town with a few Christian leaders, and in the conversation, I wasn't really expecting this conversation, the way that it came, but it was for me beautiful to observe. One of the bishops, this is what he said. He said, at the IF20 events, he felt that the people of faith had dignity, that they had a voice, that they mattered, and he felt that actually there needs to be more opportunities like that are created. So I'm seeing something here. I'm learning first that uh, because of the lack of opportunities like this, we need to explore ways in various countries, whether there's a G20 or not, for people of faith to stand together. And even if it's in what is it, 10, a 10 table, a 10 people table, to start having conversations within the communities, within the cities, within the provinces, within the countries, to start to talk about the issues that matter to people and to find ways to resolve them. So I think it's a motivation. And I think each of us, it's incumbent on us to find those pathways of partnerships, to find those pathways of conversation. That's the first part. And I think with South Africa, particularly, we are talking as a local organizing team. We are trying to figure out what would be a meaningful legacy project in South Africa. What would be something that will leave a long-lasting mark? And so we're looking forward to looking at that. It will be part of you heard me talk about the priorities, the 5 priorities. It will be one of those, and we would be facilitating, an accomplishment or two around those areas.
Well, and I do want to mention too that to our listeners that we will be having a year-end document that will kind of go over all of these things that have happened there in South Africa. And also, I'm hoping too to say a very special thank you to this local organizing committee and specifically Sandile for all of your work. I think that to be able to make this so successful this year, it has not just been one person, but it's been a whole group of people that have worked towards making South Africa year so successful. And we just want to thank you for all the work that you've done.
Well, thank you. It's been a great privilege and an honor for each of us to be involved. I think more than anything, we would not have done it without your confidence and your support, from the international team. More so, I think for me, it was the right timing. It was a time for Africa, and I think with everything that has come this year, we will inspire the world. I remember so many people that came. They commented on just how lovely South Africa is, how hospitable South Africa is, how our people inspire them. We talked about the spirit of Ubuntu, which means I am because we are. I think all of us, each of us, have an opportunity to develop the spirit of Ubuntu throughout the world, not just South Africa, not just Africa, where we are not only looking at being individualistic, but we need to look at the community. How can we make the world around us better? How can we help people smile? How can we make people happy? And how can we alleviate, some of the social challenges that our brothers and sisters, even neighbors, are experiencing?
Thank you, Sandile. Um, and again, we invite our listeners to review the material that's published on our website as well as our social media, the year-end document, like Mariana mentioned. And then we're also hoping to release a synopsis about what happened at the Social Summit. Um, and then also, Sandile, if our listeners want to read the declaration that was published at the summit, is that possible, or does it just go to the leaders of South Africa?
Well, it is possible. What I'll do is, I think with your help, we will post it on the IF20 website,
Great.
so that people can see and they can read. It's a very wonderful document. We just hope and pray, and we need to pray for our leaders. Really, I'm appealing to all people of faiths, of different faiths and religion and spirituality, to pray for the world leaders. Often, not just once, to pray that their hearts will be for the people, that their hearts will be for service to mankind, and that they can work together to overcome misunderstandings. They can work together to bring about peace and harmony in the world. I think if we were to do that, and we were to hold these leaders close to us, next to us, things will get better. I think that's what we need at this time.
Well, I
Thank you,
just want to
Sandile.
say amen. We completely agree. And especially as we come to the end of this podcast and the end of this year, I just want to also just say to our listeners how important it is that this work doesn't stop, that we're able to move forward and say, this South Africa year is something that is a springboard for what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think over the years, I've been very fortunate because I come from a home of activists. Both my mom and dad were activists in the fight against apartheid and freedom in South Africa. So that's the stock that I come from. But I come from a country where people are activists, and they really go out there, and they are aware of social issues. They really want to raise their voices. I do think that as I've grown older, or as I've learned, one thing that I've come to understand is that we cannot, as a people, delegate our ability to do good to other people. We cannot give that only to certain kind of people, like the ones that are elected. But we each have a role to play. We have hands, we have time, and we have voices. We can see things. I think it's incumbent upon us, really. Maybe it's an appeal to myself too, that let's try to make the world a better place, one person at a time. And it doesn't require large efforts. It doesn't require extravagant things you have to do to make the world a better place. It just takes you trying to see what you can do for the people around you, and for the people that you get to meet on the street, The world is at the moment is we're in a tough place, and we have a role to play, each of us, just to make another person next to us be happy and smile.
Well, Sandile, thank you for making the world a better place this year through IF20 and through the G20 Summit. We want to thank our listeners as well for this past year being a part of the G20 Interfaith Forum podcast. And we look forward to a new year with being here in the United States for G20. And we are very hopeful that we'll be able to continue this work that has happened this year. So thank you again, Sandile, for being here with us. And Stuart, happy holidays.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
The podcast provides information and discussions on the G20 Interfaith Forum, but the views expressed are those of the individuals involved and not necessarily the official stance of the forum.
The content is for general informational purposes only and should not be considered professional advice or expert recommendations. Listeners should exercise personal responsibility, seek professional guidance, and conduct further research when making decisions based on the podcast.
The information shared may not always reflect the most current developments, and external links or resources are provided for additional information but are not endorsed or controlled by the podcast.
By listening to the podcast, listeners acknowledge and accept these disclaimers. Please be aware that the content of this podcast may be subject to copyright. Unauthorized copy, distribution, and reproduction of any part of the podcast is prohibited.